G'day, I'm Rob Paxavanis and I absolutely love fishing. It's great fun and it gets us off our screens and into the wonderful Aussie outdoors. But it's even more satisfying when you actually catch a fish, and that's what I'm here to help you do. In this episode of Let's Go Fishing, I'm going to look at one of my favourite places to wet a line, our estuaries. Estuaries are those stretches of water of our coastal rivers and lakes where fresh water from further upstream mixes with the tidal salt waters of the ocean. The part of each coastal waterway that qualifies as an estuary can vary from being just a few hundred metres in length to hundreds of kilometres, especially in major systems like the Hawkesbury just north of Sydney or some of the big rivers on the New South Wales far north coast. While most estuaries have tides, some get cut off with the sea for months or even years at a time because of accumulations of sand blocking their ocean entrances. These are called ICOLs, which stands for Intermittently Closed and Open Lakes and Lagoons. But they're still estuaries. Estuaries are incredibly important places for fish and fishing. Many of our popular species breed in estuaries, and even more come in to seek refuge from predators as they feed on all sorts of tasty morsels and grow. Because of all that mixing of fresh and salt water with its different nutrients, and the presence of food-rich sand and mudflats, mangrove forests and salt marshes, estuaries are literally jumping with life. They're full of marine worms, prawns, shrimps, yabbies or nippers, crabs, cockles, mussels, oysters, algae and lots of other food fish. And because of all that food, they're also full of fish. Some of my favourite fish to catch in our estuaries include bream, whiting, flathead, tailor and mulloway, also known as jewfish. But that's only a small part of the long list of what's on offer. There's also trevally, Australian salmon, blackfish or luderick, mullet, yellowtail, small snapper, leather jackets, flounder, garfish, estuary perch and many others. To catch all these fish, you don't need lots of expensive or complicated gear. You don't even need a boat or a kayak. There's plenty of spots where you're allowed to fish from a jetty or the shore. While some of the fish I mentioned, like mulloway, might call for a bit heavier gear when they reach their larger sizes, you can target all of the popular estuary species at their more usual sizes on a nice light rod and reel outfit. Look for a nice light rod between about 1.6 and 2.5 metres. That's between about 6 and 8 foot in the old scale. Many of these rods have their ideal line strengths printed near the handle, as well as suggestions about the best casting weights. That's the weight of the sinkers or lures to use with them. If this information is printed on the rod you're looking at, choose one that's rated with lines between about 3 and 6 kilos. That's about 6 to 12 pounds in the old scale, and a casting weight of roughly between 5 and 15 grams. Those specs will make for a fantastic all-round estuary outfit for using lures, baits or both. A small to medium-sized spinning reel will balance nicely with a rod like this. A reel in the size range that most manufacturers label as 2,000, 2,500 or 3,000 is perfect. Fill your spool up with line between about 3 and 6 kilos. That's 6 to 12 pounds in the old scale. You can use either braided line or monofilament, also referred to as mono. To begin with, you're probably better off sticking with mono. You'll need a small tackle tray holding a collection of hooks, swivels and sinkers. You'll need a knife to cut your bait with, maybe a bait board, some scissors, sunscreen and a water bottle. A small backpack is great for holding everything you need so you can just grab it and go. Take a bucket along for your bait and hopefully to bring your catch home in. I'd strongly suggest that you also get hold of a bait pump, sometimes referred to as a yabby pump. Talk to the staff in your local tackle shop about these, and be sure to watch the episode back in the first series of Let's Go Fishing that showed exactly how to pump your own yabbies and worms to use as bait in the estuary. The best baits for use in the estuaries are fresh or live local baits like crabs, yabbies or worms. Whole or cut bait fish like whitebait, pilchards or tuna also work well. Even humid food stuff like chicken, beef, cheese, and even bread rolled into a ball will also catch plenty of fish at times. When rigging up for the estuary, one of the most popular and effective rigs is known as the running sinker rig. So on this end of the line, that goes to my right, and there is the running sinker. It goes down to a swivel, and the idea is that there's another 30 to say 50 centimetres of line before you get to your hook, and the fish can take the bait and not feel the weight. The sinker can run through. That being said, you still always use as little weight as possible. The lighter weight you can get away with, you're going to catch more fish. Sometimes when there's no current and little or no wind and you don't need to cast far, you can get away with using just a hook on the end of your line. That's known as an unweighted bait, and it's a very effective way to catch fish as well. Hooks come in various styles, and you're going to have a lot of fun learning about those as you develop as an angler. Size wise, you're going to need somewhere between a little size 4 right up to possibly as big as a 3/0. You should definitely learn how to use a circle hook. These interesting shaped hooks are curved in, so they hook the fish in the corner of the mouth. The secret is to not strike. You let the fish take the bait, and as it moves off, it gets hooked in the corner of the mouth. Great for when you want to release an undersized, oversized fish or an unwanted or protected species. So really good for sustainable fishing. You can learn heaps more about the circle hook in the Flathead episode of this series of Let's Go Fishing. Lure fishing's a lot of fun, and it can be very productive at times too. This is my actual lure kit. As you can see, most of the lures for my estuary kit are below the 10 centimetre mark, typically between about 5 and 7 centimetres. Now you can use all different types of lures to catch fish in estuaries, from blaze like this guy, to bib divers, to surface lures like that. You've even got soft stick baits like this guy. They all work really well. The most important thing is you've got to try and pick one that you think the fish are feeding on. If you can imitate, for example, a bait fish or a prawn or even a little crab because you think the fish are feeding on those items, then that's called matching the hatch. If you can do that, you're going to have a lot more success picking the right lure. One of the $1 million questions is where to actually go fishing. Well, thankfully in estuaries, there's lots of places you can catch fish. It often comes down to what sort of fish you're targeting. So for example, whiting and flathead will come right up into the shallows. Bream, jewfish and other fish prefer slightly deeper holes. Fish need a place where they can seek shelter, so like deeper water, snags, bridge pylons, and they also need a place to feed. So look for places where there's lots of bait fish, weed beds, oyster beds and places like that. You don't need to fish right next to snags, not too close anyway, where you're going to get snagged all the time because that makes life difficult, but you've got to fish near those places. If you're stuck, drop into your local tackle store and they'll point out some spots for you to help you get a start. Tides are caused by the gravitational pull on the ocean from the moon and the sun. Most estuaries have 2 high tides and 2 low tides in any 24-hour period. A lot of fish live and breathe by the tides. For example, where tides are really strong, sometimes you'll only catch good fish an hour either side of the tide change when the water's a bit slacker and the fish have got an opportunity to feed rather than hiding from all that fast water and trying to rest. Other places only have water when the tide pushes right in and they can fish really well. Conversely, when the tide drops right out, fish will hide in holes because that's where they're being forced to. Get yourself a tide chart from a tackle shop like this, or check your tide online. And when you do, have a really good look. Look at them every day, even when you're not fishing, and you'll learn a lot about how high they can get and how low they can get and how they change through the course of a month. But also understand that there'll be lots of exceptions. Fish love to break the rules. Speaking of rules, make sure you know the fisheries ones. If you're going to keep some fish to eat, which I strongly encourage, they need to be over any minimum legal length and under any maximum legal length. There's also bag limits telling you how many of each species you can keep, but only take what you really need and can use. Estuary fishing is such a wonderful thing to do. It gives us a great excuse to spend time in one of Australia's richest environments, observing nature in all its glory. No wonder I love it so much. I hope to see you out there.